I still remember the last talk that I had with Father Watson. I mean, the last serious talk that I had with him. I remember that he took me back to Nicaragua to start a new program. We were going to take out kids out of jail. And so I just decided, okay, I'll go and I will do it. I will do it. Then I knew my way back, and my way to Nicaragua, I knew that I needed to set up the rules, the norms in which I'm going to work with these children. And so I remember that Father went to Nicaragua like a year and a half later, and then he called me. And he took me up to a porch that we turned into an office. And then he came and asked me, Marlon, how do you educate my sons? And so I was trying to be smarter than I was. And so I came and I told him, okay, if they do back to school, they have to work. They have to go to the chahuite, we call it over there, I mean, the banana plantation. If they fight, that's a sign that they have enough energy. So they have to go and get some sand because we were building a basketball court. And so I had an answer for everything that he was asking me. So he looked at me and said, Marlon, have you ever thought about affection? Have you ever thought about love? So I just looked at him and said, what? Are you asking me to forgive them? Yes, I'm asking you to go back and forgive them. So I told him, this is not going to work. Because the group that I'm working with is a tough group. And they won't pay attention to affection, and they won't pay attention to what you're asking me to do. And so he kept on insisting and asking the question, have you ever tried with affection? So he saw that he wasn't convincing me, and I wasn't taking it from him. So he looked at me because he was getting tired. And he just looked at me and said, Marlon, how many times have I forgiven you? I wasn't a bad person, but I always gave problems. I was a teenager at that time. So I told him, many times, Father, many times. So if I haven't forgiven you, you will not be here. So now I really want you to go back and do what I'm asking you to do. I went back, and I did it. It worked with some of them, not with all of them, but to the children that I really reached through that advice that Father gave.
Test 1, test 2.
So Father told me, how many times have I forgiven you? So I said, many times, Father. So please go back and do what I'm asking you to do. I went back and I started working with this. I'm saying probably didn't work with all of them. But I still remember Martin, who was one of the kids that we took out of that camp from Nicaragua. And the tío brought him to me and said, Raúl, this guy just, he got a pencil and, I don't know, stuff, he said, and it's like, yeah, to a tío. And so they let the kid with me, and I look at him and I say, you know what, Martin? I forgive you. Don't do it anymore, but I forgive you. And this guy was looking at me like I said, wow, this guy is crazy. This guy is crazy. And he went back and kept on doing it, but at the end, he was the only person who kept in touch with me when I went back to Honduras, you know. And the other struggle that I really had with Father Watson was what Father Rick had been saying, obedience. He always came to us, especially to me, and say, Marlon, am I your father? Yes, you are my father. So you are my son? Yes, I'm your son. So please obey me. And there was a time when I came and said, yes, Father, but there are times when the son has to understand, when he has to obey the Father. So he just looked at me and said, so you don't understand the real meaning of obedience. And that was true. At that time I didn't understand it. until now that I'm a national director, when I have to beg to the boys and girls to obey what the house is asking to them. And they look at me, and then I try to reach and say, obedience is love. And they say, Marlon is crazy. So these were the two things that I really wanted to share with you. And yes, there are times when especially myself, I sit alone and I ask for some answers to him. But now he said, now you are the one who has to do the job, not me.
But I met Father Watson in 1963 and began working with his father and with Father Watson, and spent the next 43 years in Mexico. He was always determined that he was going to help the children. And I think one of the most wonderful things for him right now would to see his boys and girls grown, working with the family, taking care of younger boys and girls, and reliving his philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you. I remember one time with Father Watson that at one of the meetings in Mexico, and I usually have a tendency to be very sentimental kind of, and don't know what to say anymore. And anyway, I was standing next to Father, and I remember he holding my hand and said, "Don't you start crying or don't start acting up or something like that." But anyway, I thought I should say that if I get into that, I will just walk away, okay? But I don't think it will happen this time, because I know that we should move on and be stronger and try to keep going and say what we need to say. What I would like to share with you is mainly that Father Watson, I think his point of helping us was to reintegrate in a family, because I think that looking at his philosophy gave a lot of attention in how the family could stay together, and that is why he chose to start helping those that had lost their mother. And the reason for that was because he felt that the mother, no matter how, she would look for ways of keeping the family together. And then so he thought, well, maybe that is a good way to start doing it. Anyway, I was one in a similar case in my family, because my mother died, my father was still alive, but unfortunately my father became blind after my mother died. And of course my father didn't want us to become apart, start going one here, one there, and all over. And it was not easy to find a place for us, because we were so many, and besides that, to stay together. So we were put in a place in Mexico, run by the government, which was excellent. And we stayed there for about a year almost, because they had to find a place where they could take all of us, because my father didn't want us to go in different directions. So fortunately, with the social workers investigating, they found about NPH, and that's how we went to a Coleman. And similar to what, I don't remember who was sharing, I think it was Elias, that I had a similar experience when we got there, because it was kind of scary, because it was dark. We arrived there late, and we had been in a place where we had everything we needed, and then we arrived there, not that I didn't know what to expect, but it was dark, and then they take us in the dining room, which was under construction, and it was a little scary. And not only that, but then the people who received us were Father Raymond and Sister Filomena, and of course, then I hadn't seen foreigners either, because where I came from, we had no idea that there were more people around in the world, so it was kind of different for me to see those people there, and especially that, well, later they were going to, anyway, the ones that would look after us. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that Father Watson really had a very good way of keeping up his philosophy, and especially looking into the way he did learn himself. Because reading his books, the book that he wrote about Quien verá por los niños, ¿verdad? In that book, he does give a little introduction in what inspired him to help. And as all of you know, or most of you know, Father actually learned that from his own family and his father and his mother, how they would look after other people's needs. And then eventually he decided to get into this same kind of mission. And the interesting part that I found in that was that there is something that we could recuperate, which means that nowadays it seems that family is not necessarily, doesn't hold the same values, that people used to try to keep those values as much as possible. And I say that because a lot of people here still have their young kids, and it's good that some of them are around here. And before that, to share the part that he shared with us from where I was sitting. It's interesting because I was watching Dottie holding her baby, and it was crossing my mind. I wonder what that baby will be doing in, I don't know, 25 years from now, or even 30 years from now, if that baby grows in the same kind of environment, and how they learn and how they see. I said this because our family is not only about pequeños who grew up there, it's about all the other people that help us. And sometimes for us, growing up in the home, that's all we see at the time. Like for myself, my own experience, when I saw all the foreigners, all the people that were in one meeting, I was very touched by that and very surprised, because growing up in the home, I could only benefit from like going to school, eating, and being happy, and everything is fine. But being in the middle of all these foreigners that probably they didn't know all of us, they knew MPH as a whole, but they didn't know us directly, and being worried about how to keep it going. That really, really touched me. But anyway, and then of course that is how it keeps going, because a lot of you that have been here for years, and a good example also is the Kraft family, how they are passing this to the younger generations, and through friends and so on. So it's always nice to see that there are other people who get inspired by the work Father Watson did, and how people have other visions and are open to keep on doing good. Because I think that Father, even though he started with his focus was on orphan kids, I don't think that he was necessarily, that was all he wanted to do. I'm sure he was open to do good in whatever way, whatever manner he could do. And I'm happy that there are a lot of people who keep it going. And I've been very fortunate that I learned a lot from first in Nacolman, because I was one of those in Nacolman, and when Nacolman was still open, with Juanita and Alfredo Provencio, and because I had a good opportunity to know them even before they got married, and that was nice to see how it developed. And then from there going on and knowing more people, and then later with the years being so close to Father Rick, and I'm sure that there was a reason for that. Somehow I ended up in Haiti, and Father Watson asked me if I would go for a year, and of course I said, well, I'll give it a try. I accepted to go for a year, and that turned into more than, actually, it was just 24 years the last 18th of July. What I was trying to get to on this part is that we get inspired, and again, somebody said that Father was not just the theory, he would just go ahead and do things, and then we see, and then we keep it going, and we have our own ideas and our wishes to help also. So I am very glad that all of you were able to come here today, and thank you also for giving me the opportunity to share with all of you, and let's keep it going. Thank you.
When I first came to NPH to work, after visiting a few times, nice and clean and polished and young, and in my pressed priest clothes, Father Wasson put me to work with the pigs in Miakatlan and Eval Leverdig. Okay, all right, good place to start. And anyway, when I was going to the field, I was calling some of the pequeños to help me, and Father said, wait a minute, take one. I said, take one. And what he wanted to say to me was, the more you have with you, the less work is going to get done because it's going to turn into playing. But this is what he said. Take one because a boy is a boy, 2 boys are a half a boy, and 3 boys are no boys.
Because I believe this is an opportunity, this is a chance to actually kind of feel the moment right here, you know? So sometimes it comes very clear and sometimes it doesn't, but deep inside we just have it, you know, so I suppose I just have to express. And basically what I would like to say is thank you, gracias. Because, I mean, it's just, how can you explain it? How can you put it in words? It's just kind of complicated when it comes to feelings and when emotions and all sorts of things. Let's pray together. Okay. Okay, you see? I feel the strength that you passed to me, so I'm fine. I can say thank you again. And the impact that you have on us. And then, brother, you were the one supposed to cry, not me. No. Okay. Now I can say it. It is this. I believe, you know, that as Father Pedro and Father Iwa were saying, you know, like the impact that we have, what are we here for, you know? Like I'm here in the middle of so many of you that know me, but also so many of you that doesn't know me, that don't know me. But it's interesting because we are all here for one reason, and as they were saying, if we do something wrong, that has an effect on somebody else, and that somebody else will just pass it on. But if we do something good, then it's also the good thing about it, you know. So I believe that it will be more good than bad that we have actually done, or that we try to do in any way. So for everybody, and I suppose it's everybody, all of you here, you know, that have that impact on me to become and to be what I am now, I think that's the best part. So thank you very much. Thank you, Miss.
My name is Carlos Villanueva. I work for NPH Island, for NPH family in Mexico. The reason that I try to put some words here is because even I have a father and I have a mother, I can say that I'm an orphan. You know why? Because each time we realize that in the life we don't have justice, that we don't have love, and we don't have a home, every time we see that, we realize that we are orphans. So I understand why the ex-pequeños call, or on the pequeños call Father Wasson. It's not only because he is a priest. It's because a father is the one who gives love, the one who gives a home, the one who gives love. And if I go through the world without looking love and searching any home, then I realize that I'm an orphan too, and I understand how the world. I don't know who even Father is, or who even Miguel or Fernando is, but I know what they do. I know what the impact of their work. I know, when I start working, I realize that sometimes I hear the name of Frank Kraft, Nancy Moyer, and I say, who are they? It's the first time I met him. I met her here in Arizona, but I know how their work impact to all NPH homes. So on that basis, I understand who they are, and I understand how the family is gathering for celebrating that, for celebrate love, to celebrate home, and to celebrate what we have here in NPH. I remember that I started working as an accountant, and Miguel sent me at the beginning to Haiti. And I started to talk to Father Rick about budget and cuts and this and that, and I realized that Father was other work to do in the slums, and I was really ashamed because Father, I'm taking your time from talking about what to cut or what not. And he said, no, Carlos, I'm going to tell you how can you help me to do my job. Certainly I don't want to start talking about budget and this and that, but you are the one who is in the office working for this. So as long as you do a good job, you're going to let me have more time to do what I have to do. And that's how you help to the others. And I said, well, I believe I was just an accountant, and I believe I was just working with numbers. But I realized that no. What I do is not only the job for an organization. It's a job that impacts to children, and I'm very, very happy, very glad to realize that when I go to Haiti, or when I talk to Kiran or Jose Luis or some of the national director, it's not just an organization. It's something that really shocked me, really thrilled me, and I'm very happy to meet you guys, to meet all the people here, because it's more than an organization. You're giving life, you're giving opportunities to the one that they don't have, and I'm very happy for that, and that's what I want to say.
I was the one actually who received you when you came to Miacatlan for the first time. He arrived in a black limousine. I was standing out in the blazing sun. And Rick opened the door, got out of the car like this, and looked at me and said, "You need a hat." He was accompanied by two wealthy Mexican women, and we gave him a tour. And as we walked up to the second floor where they were just building the girls' dorm in Miacatlan, there was like halfway up the stairs a place, and one of the ladies said, "Oh, I think this would be fine to build a little room here, and somebody could live here and keep an eye on the girls so that no boys would sneak up there. Father Rick, wouldn't that be nice for you?" And he said, "Hell no, I wouldn't trust myself." So as you can see, he's not your ordinary priest either. What captured really my heart from the very beginning was the way that Father Wasson captured the human spirit. The idea of unconditional love, of not ever feeling sorry for anyone, and really enabling the pequeños to become the best persons they can be. And very often in our life, we see examples of, for instance, how important in the human spirit is to be independent. I'll give you 3 examples. Dee Capel and I just the other day went to breakfast with Mary Zigman, who is now a little older, and she and Dick for years and years and years were just very essential and staunch supporters of the pequeños and Father Wasson. So it's not that easy to get out of Dee's car. And Dee rushed around and gave Mary a hand, and Mary said, "I can't do that." How important is it? It doesn't matter what age you are, that you can do whatever you can do. Our daughter, Camila, when she was little, didn't like to eat. So my wife tried to feed her. And what my wife would say is, "Yo te doy," I am giving it to you. Which then our daughter transferred into "Yo toloi," which to this day in our family means, "I am going to do it, yo toloi." Last year in October, Frank came and visited us at the ranch. And we walked absolutely all over the place. And those of you who know the ranch know that the terrain is really a little bit difficult. At one point it got really difficult, there's gravel and it was deep down, so I just held out my arm like this to Frank. He said, "I'm not that old." But coming back to Father Wasson, that was one of the things that was always important to him. Do not feel sorry. Compassion is to suffer with, not to feel sorry for someone. If you help someone, work with them, side by side, not do things for them. And that is one of the things that have stayed with me. And fortunately, with the work we do now, with Donna, with Alfonso, with Marcus and Family Services, is one of the things we try to bring to all the homes and try to help everybody in the homes to keep that spirit alive, that the kids are enabled to do things for themselves. Thank you.
I think it's appropriate here at the Franciscan Renewal Center, where St. Francis is the patron, is that what reminds me the most of Father Wasson are the words that preach the gospel at all times, but use words only when necessary. And I think that that's really what attracted me in the virtues that Father Wasson had, is that I didn't find him to be a man of many, many words. And the opportunities that I had to be with him were times when I normally had around 50 high school students in tow. And so he was always much more enamored with them than he was with me. And something that he was really captivated about were children helping other children. And as we've heard today about Pequeños talk about how their lives have been changed, I'm here to testify to how our family's life has been changed. Dee introduced me in 1999 to Friends of the Orphans in Nuestros Pequeños Hermanos, with the opportunity to have 2 young pequeños in our house that were part of the music group. And after 11 days, my life was changed, which led to the eventual conversion of our entire family's life being changed. One of the things that my wife and I always had hoped for is that our children would be of service to the world, that was a value that was extremely important to us, especially since she and I had worked in the missions in Peru. And something how that has been accomplished has actually been through visiting the homes that they've been able to visit, and also being able to meet the pequeños that they visited, that they have encountered and have visited. And that our children today, that their lives are lives of service, and that really has come about through the generosity and the hospitality of the NPH homes, where the doors have been opened and our family have been so welcomed. So while you may think that your lives have been changed, I know of countless lives, especially our families, that's been changed by your love, your welcome, and your openness. Thank you.
I think it was Chela that said something about keeping the 10 Commandments. Obviously, you had never heard Father Wasson's 11th commandment. As a driver for Father Wasson on numerous occasions in Minnesota and Illinois, the 11th commandment is, "Thou shalt not pass a candy store without buying a box of chocolates."